travel with us to the beautiful beaches of Turks and Caicos.
Welcome to Vacation Mavens, the podcast that brings you travel inspiration and practical tips from two moms who know how to plan the perfect trip.
I'm Tamara from Your Time to Fly.
And I'm Kim from Stuffed Suitcase. With over 40 years of travel experience between us, we're here to share our favorite destinations from road trips to cruising, theme parks, and European adventures.
Whether you're planning a family vacation or a mom getaway, we have the tips and tricks to make memories that will last a lifetime.
Tamara, you just got back from a whirlwind trip. Like, you were busy, to Turks and Caicos, which personally I would say it's probably one of my favorite islands in the Caribbean. So I am hopeful that you're going to help give our listeners kind of a lowdown on Turks and Caicos, maybe what makes it unique. And then I know you have a ton of hotel information to share. Why don't we jump right in and kick us off? What's unique about Turks and Caicos? Why do you like it? And then how did you get there?
Yeah, you notice that I don't have much of a tan if you're looking on YouTube, and it's because I didn't get to spend a lot of time on the beach, even though the reason I love Turks and Caicos so much is because of the beach. Like, I was telling a lot of people that I don't do a lot of beach trips, and so when I do, I really want an exceptional beach experience. I want that soft, beautiful sand. I want clear, clean water that's like calm and just that beautiful, those aquamarine colors. Mm-hmm. That's what I envision. So if you go, like I've been to, I'm not a big fan of the Atlantis and the Bahamas and like that, that beach it's terrible. It's like a tiny little beach, more like man-made. And, there's some other places where you go where they have a lot of issues with the sargassum, the seaweed. And so it's harder to actually go in the water at all. I just feel like Turks and Caicos is my kind of island. It is a more laid back island. So it's not filled with all-inclusives. It's not a party scene kind of island. They do have, a few bars and one casino at the Ritz-Carlton and like maybe one what you might call a nightclub, but not really a nightclub, So it's just, it's not that type of scene. It's a little bit quieter. I do think it's really good for families because most of the hotels on the island have 1, 2, 3, 4 bedroom like accommodations. That's really common. As well as a lot of them also have villas, like a villa property. And that's, obviously you can also do like the Airbnb, VRBO kind of thing, but this is within the resort properties. And so, I find that people really warm and I really enjoy it. Definitely one of my favorites also.
That's awesome. On our recent cruise that I did last year before with Lizzie.
You went to Grand Turk,
we went to Grand Turk. Yeah. So but that wasn't where I was at when I did. So can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. So I think there's 40 islands in the Turks and Caicos Islands. The main one is Provo or Providenciales is the airport. And that is where most of the international flights go. They're actually, I forget which airline, I think it might be United, is starting a direct flight to South Caicos. Okay. One thing about the Turks is that a lot of development is happening in terms of hotels. And it's not just on that main island, although there's a lot on that main island. And there's a lot of these villa type properties also on private islands, like smaller, islands. So there's a lot of opportunity. But the main airport is Providenciales, and that is on, the main island. And how I got there was connecting through Atlanta. I believe that at some points of the year or certain days of the week, there's direct from Boston on JetBlue, but it wasn't working. And I can't remember if it was that or I just wanted to use points. And so I used my Delta points because that was better.
But I know coming from Seattle, like I almost always have to go. You're either going through like Texas or Atlanta or Miami is
definitely anybody that's going on to the Caribbean on American, you're connecting in Charlotte or Miami. And then with Atlanta, you're going obviously
with
through
Delta.
And then there's quite a few from like Newark, from DC, from JFK. So there's a lot of direct flights. Yeah. Pretty easy to get to.
Oh, nice. So why don't you explain? Because I know for some people, maybe if they've not flown in and they've done only like a Caribbean cruise, they might be a little overwhelmed because I know that most of the times when I've flown into a Caribbean island, the airport can be like, oh. So why don't you kind of talk people through like when they're arriving and how do they get to their hotel or property? What do you recommend?
Yeah, this is definitely something to keep in mind. And it's something to keep in mind when you're budgeting as well. Yeah. So arriving in the airport is like a lot of islands. It's a fairly small airport. And they tend, Iceland does this too, but they stack arrivals and departures.
I
And so you've
know.
got all these planes arriving at the same time. I would say
Yes.
generally, if you want to avoid these long lines for customs and passport control, to not arrive on a weekend because Saturdays are going to be their biggest days. You want to definitely, when you're departing, leave at least 2 to 3 hours to get through that process, even though you think, oh, it's a small airport.
Yeah.
It's slow. So
There's
coming
like two
in,
agents and then there's like three
yeah,
planes just pulled up.
and the other thing is they're not air conditioned. So
Oh
you're
yeah,
like
right.
arriving off the plane in your
Like
city
your
clothes or whatever.
yeah, exactly, like your hoodie
And you've got your bags, so that you're standing
yeah.
there like fanning yourself. And yeah, so it is. And you have to walk a bit, from the plane to the line. So it took me about an hour to get through the passport control. I didn't check a
That's not
bag.
too bad.
Although I will say someone from my group, I should mention the reason that I did this trip is that it was a travel agency FAM, which is
Yeah.
basically, as you guys probably know, I had recently become a travel agent in January. And so I am trying to learn as much as I can about, I mean, obviously I have tons of travel experience, but really dig deeper into some of the destinations and really understand the different products and the different hotels and offerings. So that the purpose of that was to go, basically my stay was hosted by the 2 hotels I stayed at. And then I took an opportunity to see a lot of other hotels as well so that I'm able to be like, okay, you come to me for Turks and Caicos and I'm really going to be able to tell you the difference between this one and that one and all that.
Yeah.
And hopefully get you a lot of perks because a lot of the hotels will offer things like, the free breakfast or the resort credits and things. So anyway, one of the other people from my group, they had gotten through and they had checked a bag. And so that hour of me going through, their bag just arrived.
Yeah.
So can you imagine if
Yeah.
you did, and so one thing that I didn't mention is that if you don't want to wait in the line, there's something called Fast Track. And you
Yes.
can go through, you can pay a fee. It's $75 a person.
Oh my gosh,
way.
it's gone up. It used to be like $39.
And I think it may even be dynamic pricing. I'm not sure because I feel like somebody said starting at 75. So I don't know if it's
Oh,
like higher
wow.
during high volume. But anyway, she had Fast Track and she ended up waiting at the baggage
For her
carousel
bag.
for the whole time.
Oh my gosh. Oh. Baggage, like even getting your bag sometimes, like again, they're small airports and it can be a little confusing. Once you get your bag, there's not really signage and people always directing you. Do you walk out here? Do you walk out there? Like sometimes it can be confusing.
It's also very overwhelming because it's unclear like what to do for transportation. So it's because it's a small airport, there's not a lot of room for people to wait to pick up or for cabs. And so there's someone in the airport that is helping basically be a dispatcher to then bring you out and direct you to the right form of transportation. So there's a couple of ways to get to your hotels. One is a taxi, but there's shared taxis. And the way that these taxis work on the island is that they're per person. So taxis on Turks and Caicos is actually pretty expensive. Like for example, one time we went to go see another hotel, it was about a 10 to 15 minute drive.
Yeah.
And there were 5 of us and he charged me $60.
For you by yourself?
No, for all of us.
All 5.
But
okay.
it was because it was $12 per person.
Wow.
So it's
down the road.
Really different, way of thinking of it.
Yeah.
If you wanted to arrange a private transfer, I think those start around 150, not per person, but 150. And
or whatever. Yeah.
But you think about it, it's to go direct to not, have to wait.
Not
like
have
maybe
other people's stops. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do hotels not provide shuttles?
Not to the airport, it didn't seem like.
Interesting. No. Okay. And about how far, like, to the main? Because it feels like most of them are on, like, a main beach area. I mean, I know there's a few different ones, but how far from the airport to get to hotels?
Not far at all.
Okay,
it's, I would say 15, 20 minutes tops.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you recommend people do? If you're coming in as a couple, what would you, if you and Glenn were going there?
I mean, it depends. Do you like to
just pay the shuttle,
be in
the private shuttle
or not,
Yeah.
I mean, if it was just 2 of us, I'd probably just do the shared taxi because I forget how much that actually, no, you know what? I'm going to correct myself. I had asked someone because it's more expensive to go from the airport. And I'm pretty sure it was something like $30 or $40 a person. So really, if you have a family, book the private transfer was the takeaway that I had.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. Do you want to get us into properties then, since that's obviously where you're going to be an expert? And then maybe we'll talk about if you did have any little bit of time or what people typically. So why don't you jump in on properties?
Yeah, so I stayed at two hotels. The first one is called the Palms, and it's located on Grace Bay, and that's the probably what
That's
you
the
were
big one.
thinking of. It's the
Yes.
most famous. It's almost always voted as one of the best beaches in the
Yeah.
world. It is gorgeous. It is that really soft, sand, mostly a pretty wide beach. Beautiful, beautiful water. There's a reef, fairly far out, so it
Right.
keeps it,
Protected.
protected, and it's not, you don't get the seaweed issue because it's
Oh,
protecting from
yeah.
that as well.
Nice.
And
Okay.
then you also, it has waves, but it's not like super rough. So it is a beautiful stretch of beach. And that's
Is it
where,
pretty? It's probably safe for not bad riptides then as well. And I always am freaked out about with beach vacations is
yeah,
like riptides, especially being on the West Coast. Like Mexico is notorious for these gorgeous resorts, but you don't go
like
there.
Cabo,
So
right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So the Palms it's a five-star property. It has a more traditional kind of colonial architecture type feel. For anyone that had been to Barbados, they compare it to the Sandy Lane in Barbados.
Okay.
It's the same architect, but it's very lush. Like you walk through and it's not a high rise. It has, maybe five different buildings and it is just like kind of tree lined, like palm tree lined paths and a lot of flora, so
Hmm.
beautiful.
It's kind of
Just,
giving me like Charleston, South Carolina, like that montage or something like kind of just
yeah,
like
maybe
green and lush
lush
and
and
that
yeah.
yeah.
And so what I stayed in was a one bedroom suite oceanfront, which, no complaints
Tough life.
there. It was one of those things where you're like, okay, I really wish I had my whole family here because this is gorgeous.
Didn't have anything on your calendar and you could just
Yeah.
hang out.
Yeah. Actually, in both of the properties that I stayed at, I spent so much time on my balcony because they had such beautiful like furniture out there and so comfortable. So
Mm,
like when I did have time at night, I would sit out there and go through my email and things like that. And I'm like,
nice.
it's so comfortable. I could sleep out here, but then I'd end up with mosquito bites or
Yeah, of
something.
course.
But it's just to listen because it's just the weather was gorgeous. It wasn't too hot. There's like that soft breeze. You just listen to the waves. I'm like, this is the life. Like, I may not have had time on the beach, but even just experiencing that was so
That's
wonderful.
awesome. Nice.
I really love the Palms. They have recently done a renovation. Everything looked, beautiful. The suite that I was in is huge. It can sleep up to four with a pull-out couch, full kitchen, um, dining area, 1.5 baths, just like beautiful. Definitely, you can check out my Instagram story highlights or, I'm doing some Instagram reels and things too, if you want to see a little bit more detail. And also, the restaurants there were really good. They recently redid their kind of pool beach restaurant, had some really good fish tacos, which I know you would like.
Well, that's my cup
Yeah.
of tea.
And then their other restaurant is called Parallel 23, and it's more of a fine dining. And I had a really good steak there. And I'm
Oh,
kind of picky. I usually will only have steak at a steak restaurant because I
they
only
don't
like my
always know
steak
the
certain ways.
cuts.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was really good. And their spa there is also voted like one of the best in the Caribbean. It was
Nice.
really nice. It was you go in, to your changing room, whatever,
Yep.
and the relaxation area is out by kind of one of these Zen gardens with a pool, like a reflection pool.
Okay.
And then the treatments are all in these individual little buildings. I want to call them huts, but they're not. They're
Yeah.
like solid stone structures. And each of those has a little Zen garden out the back. So there's natural light coming in and you're like looking out at this
Oh,
natural,
that's really
relaxing
nice.
thing. So really nice spa as well.
And did it have a day spa type feeling? Were there whirlpools or other like sauna, steam rooms, things like that
Sauna,
that you could use?
steam, outdoor shower. Yeah, you could definitely spend longer there than I did. And I'd be happy to spend a lot of time there. And then
Nice.
I didn't get to really hang out at the pool or the beach, but it's really beautiful. They have water sports. Like most of these hotels have your paddle boards, kayaks, snorkels, and the Hobie cats, like the small sailboats that you can
Oh
take
yeah,
out.
yeah, yep.
Yeah, so
Nice.
all of that is included. And yeah, so that was a great property and it's right on, Grace Bay. It has a lot of beachfront beach
Is there a
service.
prime, like I know with the Caribbean, you're going to get the best deals during hurricane season, which is like August, October, right?
Yeah.
Is there a time that you would recommend people might be able to get a deal, like a shoulder season that's not necessarily hurricane season? And then what would be a price point of a property like that?
Yeah. The most expensive season is going to be festive, which is like from December 20th through January something. And then President's Weekend is another very
Oh, that makes
expensive
sense.
time. And then it maybe gets a little bit lower in the May, June, but not that much. They're saying
Okay.
that like shoulder season is not what it used to be, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Working, so many people working from home, there is no real shoulder season.
Yeah. And like for example, the suite that I stayed in for the low season is like 1,200 a night.
Okay.
We recently talked to Marcy about Hawaii and how prices have been going up and up. And I
Mhm.
just find across the Caribbean, all like kind of beach destinations, the price of hotels is really high. As you know,
Interesting.
I went through so much research to plan our
Yeah.
multi-gen trip that's coming up. And I was really stunned by the price of, just kind of, like I said, across the board of different resorts. And so, again, I'm going to give a plug to maybe Europe is cheaper than you think it is.
Yeah.
Some
Well,
of the
and
beaches over there,
that's what I
but
was going to say. There are beaches in Europe. People forget that. Like I've
yeah.
been really craving going to, southern Portugal, and then I would love to go to Turkey and try
Yeah.
the Antalya or whatever it was. Yeah. Okay. Well, good to
Yeah.
know. Well, enough on that. I think that's really good. So, do you want to cover maybe the other property you stayed at? Is it in that same
Yep.
Grace Bay or is it
So
somewhere
actually,
different?
it's across the island. It's
Okay.
on Long Bay, and it's called the Shore Club. And what they have is a beach to beach vacation where if you want to, you can split your week between one side of the island and the other side of the island.
That's
So you get
awesome.
two different
Yeah.
experiences, in one vacation. And it's almost hard to say which is better because the difference is on the beach front is that Long Bay it's really known for kite surfing. So it's
Hmm.
windier or breezier. I didn't find it to me when I've been in Aruba, like my eyes have
Yeah.
teared from the wind. I didn't find it like that at all. I found it more, oh, I need to remember to put on sunscreen because I'm not hot because there's a breeze, or I need
Right.
to like have a strap on my hat so it doesn't blow away. But
Okay.
it was not like excessively windy.
Okay.
It's a smaller beach, so it's narrow, but it's still pretty long. At the Shore Club, there was no problem getting chairs. Like everything it's just such a long stretch of beach that even though it's like narrow, like you only have to walk a few feet to the actual waterfront,
Nice.
there's no issue in terms of space at the beach. And so I
Hmm.
think a lot of people just want to be on Grace Bay. And so that kind of has a premium kind of feel
Right.
to it. But I loved it. And Shore Club to me it was very sophisticated feeling, very exclusive feeling. It definitely had a like you've arrived kind of feel to it, but not in
Yeah.
a pretentious way, and it's still in a very approachable way. Like the
Is it a
restaurants were beautiful.
luxury as well,
It's
like five
also
star?
luxury, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But I don't think the price point is quite as high as some of the
Okay.
hotels on Grace Bay.
Grace Bay. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, but great restaurants, really good sushi restaurant, beautiful. They have both villas and, you know, their hotel accommodations, which can be from a junior suite, one bedroom suite, two bedroom suite, up to five bedroom. They even have an executive penthouse that can be combined with others to make 9 rooms on the top
Wow.
floor. And it, really amazing, beautiful spaces. What I loved about the one bedroom oceanfront that I stayed in, and I'm just going to mention this for families with teens. I think that this
Yep.
would be perfect because when you walk in on the left, there's what they call the study. The study has a pull-out couch, it has 2 closets, and it has its own full bathroom.
Oh, wow.
And
That's
then
huge.
in the rest of the space, you have this gourmet kitchen, dining room, the living room, which also has another pull-out couch. So they still only max your occupancy at 4.
Oh,
But
but each
a
of the
lot of
teens can have their own
right, a lot of
bed.
teens
Yeah.
they don't want to share a pull-out couch with their
Yeah.
sibling.
Yeah.
That's, they're
Yeah.
too big for that. So
Yeah.
I really liked that they had privacy and space or if you had 2 little kids,
And a
just put
separate
them on that.
bathroom.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then a full, a beautiful, I mean, I would have been happy just in my room. I felt almost guilty. I felt like I needed to go sit on the other chairs to like, use all the space. And so it's
I've
really
done that
nice.
before. That's awesome. It sounds amazing. And was there food there as well? I'm assuming like the other like good restaurants?
Yep, really, the sushi restaurant was really good. There's another restaurant that did breakfast, and then they had more comforty foodie kind of dinner. And the nice thing about these properties, and they actually have another property called the Sands, which is their 4-star property. There's a shuttle that runs between all of them, and you have signing privileges at all of them. So you can't use the beach or the pools except the one that you're staying at, but you can
Oh,
go use
okay.
the restaurants. And
Okay,
so I thought
gotcha.
this is really good for people that don't want to rent a car but don't want to pay those high cab rates, you know?
Hmm.
So you, for example, the
And also,
Sands.
or maybe have a longer trip and they don't want to eat at the same restaurant every night.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, because if there's the Sands has one restaurant, then the Palms has two, and the Shore Club has two, but then they also, I guess you can use the pool bars. But, you know, that gives you more
Yeah.
variety. And the Sands, you can also walk into town. And I wasn't sure what to expect about town. We'll talk a little bit more about like
Yeah.
activities later. But it was really pretty and cute and, you know, little boutiques, little restaurants,
And
little
that's provinciality.
the town, it's actually called something different, and I'm not going to
Okay.
remember off the top of my
That's okay.
head, but you can
It'll be in
walk
the
to
show
it,
notes.
yeah, from some places like the Sands or the Ritz-Carlton or, you know, some of
Okay.
the other properties you can walk. And the Palms also offers bikes that you can borrow.
Okay. So we covered those two
Yep.
beaches, but it sounds like you also toured a few other properties. So do you want to give a little lowdown on kind of some other options or what people might
Yeah.
be looking for or how they differ, things
Yeah.
to consider?
I'll give you really high level. So to stick on the Long Bay side, really close to the Shore Club, there's a place called H2O Lifestyle Resort. It's a very small boutique property. They don't have a restaurant, but they do have a food truck there for lunch, and then they have an Italian chef that comes in a couple of times at the pool bar for dinners. But they also have like grills that you can use, and there's the full kitchens. And what they're really well known for is the kite surfing. So they actually have a kite surfing school. So if you're really
Okay.
into water sports or wanting to try kite surfing, that'd be
Oh,
a great place to
interesting.
stay.
Cool.
It has a really cool modern vibe. Like it has
Yeah.
kind of the white stucco type of buildings, you know, a little bit like Greek architecture in a way, or
Yeah.
just, you know, like a modern beach, you know, kind of contemporary style. So
Yeah.
that was one. Also next door to the Palms,
So
there's
Grace Bay side.
on the
Yeah.
Grace Bay side, there are a couple of other four-star options. I mentioned the Sands. The Alexandra Resort is right next to the Palms. So really good position on Grace Bay. And that's just going to, you know, it's not as fancy or whatever, but it has these multi-bedroom suites that have been recently renovated. I looked at them. They're great. You know, they're not huge, but they're perfect for families. You know, still have kitchens and
Nice.
all of that. They still have multiple restaurants, and you're right there on Grace Bay. So those are all like really solid family options.
Yeah.
The one that I felt was really good for couples is called the Waimara, and that is a little bit further down Grace Bay. It has to me a very like South Beach sexy kind of vibe.
Okay.
Like you walk in and just like it's open air lobby and you're looking out to the pool, and the pool has like the sunbeds and the cabanas, and it's
Yeah.
not like music thumping type of
Okay.
South Beach. It's more
Yeah.
just like style wise,
Like,
you know?
yeah, like people are gonna hang here. People are, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
like
Okay,
so
gotcha.
it really feels couples, and you will appreciate this. And I think we might talk about this a little bit more in a few episodes, but I didn't love the floor plan of the bathroom.
Of
And
course.
you guys
As a
will
glass
know that
window,
it's like
a glass
such,
door.
yeah. So open bathroom, they do have that glass shower. At least it's frosted or like
Okay.
more of that green, like opaque kind of.
Sea glassy kind of.
Yeah, but still, you know, if it's dark and the lights are on, like whatever, your silhouette's going to be there, right?
Yeah.
So to me, it's for couples, and it's not
Yeah.
like where I would go for it. Even though you might think it'd be good for a girlfriend getaway, I think you need to
Yeah.
think about if you have your own room, then it's good, you know.
Yeah.
And just, you know, I'm not a huge fan of the open floor plan just because of like lights and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
two good things that they had there, one was they have Dyson hair dryers,
Oh, nice.
which, you know, I never
It
dry
doesn't
my
matter for
hair
me. I was like,
because
I
it
dry
takes
my
forever,
hair.
but like a
Yeah.
Dyson one I think would do a
Yeah.
much better job.
Yeah, that's
Because
great.
so many times I'm like, wow, this hotel hair dryer is, I could just like puff on my hair and could maybe get the same result. And also,
I'm the other way. I'm like, I can't really comment if it was a good hair dryer or not because anything will dry my hair. It's like I
And
could just
then-
like maybe use my hand.
they also have little free libraries on property, which I thought was really cute
Nice.
because so many times I would read a book and leave it behind at a hotel. So I thought that was
Oh,
kind of cute.
nice.
And I actually
I-
noticed that they
yeah.
had a book in each of the rooms that we toured too, like just a new
I have
copy.
to say I'm like addicted to my Kindle Unlimited. I just love having one like device and I can get any
Yeah.
books I want, as many as I want. And if I don't like a book, it's not a big deal. I just download something different. And
So
yeah,
I don't
it's
do the
nice.
Kindle Unlimited, but I am
Yeah.
kind of addicted to my Kindle, and it's mostly
Yeah.
because I'm old and I can't see as well.
I was gonna say Kindles are actually I use an iPad for my Kindle Unlimited, but I bought a Kindle for like cruises and beach trip because an iPad and stuff have really bad glare.
Yeah, yeah.
But they're
So I use
perfect
the
for
little
beach and
Kindle
pool.
paperweight,
Yep,
paperwhite. So
Paperwhite,
yeah,
yep.
you see You can see on the beach. You can make the font as large as you need.
Yeah.
And you can download from Libby from your local library. And so that's what
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
And I will admit that I am also, when I can't download from there, if I'm on a wait list, I will now order the large print books from the library.
Nice.
I mean, I'm almost
Hey,
55. What are you going
yeah,
to do?
just accept it. Like I fully embrace that I'm on some trips sometimes I pull out my like flashlight to
Yeah,
read the menu and I'm like, I'm at that stage of life. And
right.
it's weird how it helps.
It
I didn't
does.
understand it before, but now that I'm at that phase of life, I'm like, light makes a
Yeah.
difference.
And I know I can just put on like my reading glasses, like
Right.
these are reading
Yeah.
glasses. But then if I'm laying in bed, like I still have to find the
Yeah.
right like position for it. But anyway, sidetrack.
Anyway, sorry. Yeah, side note there.
And
Okay.
I'm going to
Yeah.
give you one other, like a couple other tidbits about one of the
Yeah.
properties I saw, and that's the Ritz-Carlton. And I know a lot of
Hmm.
people are drawn to the Ritz-Carlton brand. And my bias is going to come out here for sure. But it's the only high rise at the current time, the high rise hotel on the island. So you have these two tall white towers that sometimes have like narrow windows. So it kind of gives like hospital slash prison vibes like, in a more modern contemporary way. The same experience that I had in Aruba is that the curb appeal wasn't great. The public spaces were beautiful.
Yeah.
And here, actually, I do think that the rooms were nice. Where the Ritz-Carlton that I stayed at in Aruba, I was very unimpressed by the rooms.
Yeah.
They needed a reno. But a couple things to know if you do want to stay at the Ritz-Carlton is number one, it was built more recently, and so they have a small stretch of beach. So picture a triangle. At the
Yeah.
base, the wider part of the triangle is where the buildings are, and the beach is at the point of the triangle.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you think about everyone in those two towers trying
Has
to
to
go to
feed
the
onto
beach
this
of
one
that.
spot.
Yeah, so your beach is going to be more crowded. And of course, you have
Yeah.
pools as well, but that's just something to keep in mind, especially if
Good
you're
know.
going at the busy season. The other is one of the
And that's something
towers.
that they're taking pictures where they don't show that on the like PR stuff. So that's where a
And
travel
it's still
agent
like a
having that
decent
personal
looking
experience.
beach, but
That's
you
what I
have
mean.
towers behind you,
Yes. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
a lot of people to fit on that beach.
Yeah.
And the other thing is there are two towers. One is like the hotel and one is the Ritz-Carlton residences. And that's
Oh,
where you're going
right.
to find the multi-bedroom properties.
Yeah.
So you can book it as if it's part of the hotel,
Right.
but you actually don't earn Marriott points if you stay in the residences, and you can't use Marriott points to stay in the residences. So
Ah,
just another for those that are looking to
points
do points and
people.
miles. Yeah.
Speaking of points and miles, I just booked, we're staying at the Ritz in Geneva for our
Okay.
upcoming trip. And I just happened to be, I was trying to fix hotel issues we've already had coming up. And I just happened to glance on the Marriott site and I saw it went down by 12,000 points. So I hurried and rebooked
Ooh,
our stay and I got
great.
12,000 refunded. The good thing about points bookings is there's so much flexibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I have a Marriott booked in Paris, but now I just got a deal on Chase Travel Portal. So I'm going to cancel that one and I love it. Sorry.
well,
Side
and
note.
for those of you that love Hyatt points, as many people do,
Yep.
they're building an Andaz
Oh, wow.
on Turks, and they're also
Yeah.
building a St. Regis like next to the Sands, I believe, kind of near the Ritz-Carlton.
Nice.
So
Well, the
they're
Andaz will be nice. I want to
yeah.
like Hyatt. I still just haven't ever found properties available. Haven't been able to get
Yeah.
there, but they're Hyatt people. I know that they're known for the like the luxury all-inclusives or gorgeous resorts, like that really maximizing your points that way.
Yeah.
But I do know with Hyatt, you would know this, is that if you are a family, you can't always get away with that. I think it's with points bookings, or is it with suite night upgrades that it's normally for only for two people?
I don't know,
There's something
actually.
about that. There's some trick with that. I think it might just be with all inclusives. There's a big issue with using points at all inclusives if you
Yeah.
are planning to put more than two people in the room. So,
Oh, you know what I
something
forgot to
consider.
mention? I talked
Yeah.
about the Alexandra. That's actually an all-inclusive.
Oh,
You know, a lot of people really all-inclusives because, yes, it's an island like Hawaii where you're bringing a lot in, and it's actually not a very fertile island, so you're really bringing a lot in.
yeah.
And so the food can get pricey. And so I know people are interested in all-inclusive. So that's one option. And the other thing that we haven't talked about, which we'll probably talk about maybe in the fall, is both you and I have been to beaches on
I was
Turks
just
and
going to say
Caicos.
beaches. Yeah.
So most
Yeah.
well known of the all-inclusives on the island.
Yeah.
And they are building this whole new section called Treasure Beach. and that's going to open next spring. And
Nice.
so I'm actually going to go back to Turks and Caicos in the fall for the Family Travel Association retreat that's happening
Oh,
there.
nice.
And I hope I can get to tour it, but we won't know, for a few more months. We'll talk more about, our joint beaches
Yeah.
experiences when we get to that
Sounds good.
episode.
Seems like a good one. We're getting a little long, but why don't we wrap up with some of the things to do around that island when you're there? Because in case you don't, I mean, I would say most people probably go just to enjoy the pool and the beaches. But what else is there to do?
So one thing that we did, which I definitely recommend everyone do, is on Thursday nights they have a fish fry. So it is basically like a food truck festival with music and artisans like crafts and souvenirs and stuff. But you have a lot of different drink trucks that have, pineapple drinks or coconut drinks, fun drinks, and then different food vendors as well. And it's just a nice way to like mix with locals because it's,
Yeah.
locals plus visitors. It's definitely a mix. And then I think it's every week their Junkanoo band performs, which have
Oh,
you heard of
right.
Junkanoo?
I have Junkanoo. Yep.
I think of it more, I don't know if it originated in the Bahamas but it's definitely a Caribbean kind of
Yeah.
with African roots, kind of
Yep.
music band. Basically, there's really colorful costumes. They've made instruments out of like cowbells and garbage cans and things like that. And it's just so good. It's so fun because their
Nice.
rhythm is so fast. I'm just looking at these guys like pouring sweat because
Sweat.
I
Yeah.
can't I my arms would last 2 minutes like
I
drumming like
know.
that.
Oh,
There's no way
yeah.
I could keep that up without my arms being complete like jello.
Yeah.
And so it was so fun, so much fun to
That's
do
awesome.
that. So I'd really recommend that. Town, like I said, was very nice to go
And
into
this is that
town.
like just
Yeah,
this
the
like
town kind
because
of in the center
we're
by
main
Grace
talking
Bay.
just that on okay,
Yeah.
Provinciales
Yeah,
area.
that's the
Okay.
only island that I
Yep.
have been
Yep. I
to.
just wanted to make sure just to clarify that
The nice
town.
thing
Yeah.
is if you do want to island hop there's ferries or you
There's
can go
ferries.
by
Yeah, that's
plane. You
right.
have to go by plane, I think, to Grand Turk. But there
Okay.
is a separate like domestic not terminal, but you
Yeah.
don't have to deal with the terrible line for the
For the
international
international.
at
Good
the
to know.
airport. The other thing is really just a lot of water sports. It's known for like
Yeah.
snorkeling, scuba diving. There's a shipwreck that you can actually like walk out to or snorkel out to from Long Bay as well. So just a lot of water sports. So some people will charter a boat for whether they want to go fishing or just snorkeling or kind of island hopping. They'll charter it for a day or half a day. So that's a great option. You know, parasailing, like all of those kind of water sports, as you would expect from a lot of islands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Any other final tips you want to share?
Just when you're leaving, it is really chaotic at the airport. I would give, like I said, definitely 2 hours. If you're leaving on a Saturday, I'd probably give longer. It is a very long security line unless you have the fast track. And then when you get through, it's a very small area. And what you may not see at first is there are steps where you can go upstairs where there's more seating. And there's also like a bar up there. So like in the
Mm-hmm.
main departure lounge area, it's
Yeah.
just jammed in there. So if you have some time, go
Yeah.
upstairs and it'll be a little quieter. You'll
That makes
probably find
sense.
some
Yeah.
seating.
I remember when we were leaving, I have a funny little celebrity story, which I'm normally not into celebrities, but you'll get this when I bring it up. Randall Cobb was sitting in the gate. So he's a famous wide receiver from the Packers. And then I don't remember what he was with recently, but famous NFL player. And I saw him waiting, and it's such a tiny airport that I was
Yeah.
like, oh, he's a new and famous there.
Apparently, Turks is pretty popular with celebrities, which I heard like Drake, Kim Kardashian, or maybe one of the other Kardashians. Just different people. And
Yep.
apparently, there's this tiki bar that's like out in the water that a lot of people, like locals, hang out at off the point by Long Bay, but also celebrities hang out
Okay,
there
that
some
makes
too.
sense.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I'm
but
guessing a lot of people have private jets that get them in and out, but
yes,
I
private
guess.
jets and they probably have their own private villas too. But
Yep, exactly.
keep
Yeah.
your eyes out.
Well, thank you so much. It sounds like you had a nice trip of touring hotels,
Yeah.
a little taste of the island, and hopefully you'll get some more time there when you go back in the fall. But thanks to all of our listeners for listening in, and we will be back with you again soon.
Bye. If you like this episode, be sure to subscribe and rate and review on your favorite podcast app, as that helps other people discover us. And if you want to see more, follow me, Tamara, at Your Time to Fly on Instagram and Facebook and all the others.
And you can follow me, Kim, at Stuffed Suitcase on Instagram, Facebook, and of course my blog.